and probably I'm going to just duplicate it one more time, and this will be probably just right to the left foreground building. So just duplicate it, Control and D, and just place it right next to the wall. And now I can duplicate away some more grass pieces, not too much. And that seems fine. So the last part now is going to be rendering and compositing. So let's start preparing the scene. As you know, we've created a physical sun sky for indirect illumination, just for testing purposes on the textures. So we don't need to create anything more than this, but we can tweak several things with the physical sun sky. One of those will be the ground color. It creates a little bit more warm feeling for the whole of the scene. Again, it's not necessary because everything will be tweaked inside Photoshop as far as the colors go. And one more thing that we're going to do is to select the sun shape. So this is the main light that is illuminating the scene, and in the top view make sure that you are turning by world orientation mode. You can hold Ctrl Shift and right click just to select that. So this way we can rotate the light and change the angle of the shadow. So this tweak, if we render again, just saving to see the difference, and if you render, I'm just going to bring down the quality so it renders faster. Now let's render, and you can see the difference between the two scenes. The new one feels much better because it casts more shadows into the view of the camera, so the whole scene feels much better and looks much better. So for the production quality, let's bump up the samples to 4, and also let's the preset that I'm using now, it's the HD one. Is going to turn on the resolution to 100%. In the common tab you can see that I'm rendering in HD resolution 1280 by 720. So I'm just going to render the scene from the render camera. So this is the final scene. So now we can save the image as a target format, just call it render. So this is our final scene, but we need to create one more renderer. So this will be the Ambient Occlusion pass that will help us bring some details, shadow details, when we compose the two together inside Photoshop. So to do that, the Ambient Occlusion pass, I'm going to just select all the geometry by going to Edit, Select by Type, Geometry. Also make sure that you save a different version of the file, because this will destroy all the lights materials. I'm going to assign a new material to all the geometry, so this will be a surface shader. In the out color, I'm going to choose a MIP Mentor texture, which is called MIP Amp Occlusion. So this will give our ambient occlusion. So I'm just creating the samples, bumping them to 128, and also the max distance to 1. The max distance depends on the size of your scene. So 1 means 1 Maya unit will be the distance of the ambient occlusion. But that also depends on the fall off, which is 1 at the moment. Also, we don't need the physical sun sky, so I'm going to delete that. so that's why you need to save the scene before that. And now I'm going to render the ambient occlusion pass. So this is the pass. It renders much faster than the diffuse one. So just I'm going to save it again as a target, just a different name. And now the final step is going to Photoshop. So here both files open inside Photoshop, and they're pretty easy to composite. All you need to do is bring up the ambient occlusion pass inside on top of the diffuse one. So I'm just doing just creating a mask for the diffuse one. If you saw the scene comes with the alpha that's on the sky, which comes very handy when it's time to place some new sky that you're going to do later. But now let's just bring the ambient occlusion pass on top of our renderer, and also now I'm going to create a mask for the ambient occlusion pass as well. And one final thing, and now all we need to do is change the blending mode of the ambient occlusion pass to multiply. And now you can see the difference with and without ambient occlusion pass. You can see how the ambient occlusion brings up details in the shadows. By that I mean brings more shadows. And now here is the clouds that are going to use for the sky. So just place it beneath all the passes. I'm just going to scale down to match the whole scene. It seems fine. So now what I'm going to do is to merge, just try first to tweak the ambient occlusion pass. Most of the time it won't be necessary to be on 100% opacity, so just I'm going to see how it looks with 85% and with 100%, and just going to select between one of the two. But most of the time it's better to tune down the ambient occlusion. So finally I'm merging those two together, and merging the diffuse and ambient occlusion pass, and finally merging the combined two passes with the sky and creating the final scene. So it's not over, we need to create the color correction of the scene. So I'm using the curves. The shortcut is Ctrl+M, just trying to darken up the scene, and I'm going to do this thing one more time, but with adjustment layer. So I'm just going to create a new adjustment layer with curves and select the auto option on them. This will crush the blacks a little bit further, and overall creates a more nice feeling to the scene as a whole, or warm feeling. As you can see, the sky is now much warmer. So this is the final image that we've created. So we've gone over many different techniques inside of Maya for creating high poly, low poly models, for texturing the external environment inside of Maya. So in this tutorial I'll try to bring you different techniques, not only for a certain field, but for many different ones. So I hope you enjoyed this series of tutorials, and I hope you learned some new techniques with watching these videos, and I hope you see you next time with some new and exciting tutorials. So until